plant systematics or plant taxonomy. So taxonomy is the systematic arrangement of things according to some principles or rules. So here in plant taxonomy or plant systematics, so the arrangement of plants in a systematic manner based on the similarities according to some principles or rules. Systematics is also the arrangement of things in a systematic manner. So let's come to the first one, introduction to taxonomy. So the word taxonomy was coined by A.P.D. Kandol. The term taxonomy was coined by A.P.D. Kandol. According to the taxonomy word, the systematic or arrangement of the plants in a systematic or based on some principles or rules in a systematic manner. So here when we talk about plants, we are observing many number of plants in our daily life. So here we may identify some plants or we may not able to identify some plants. So here if you consider where are the plants, okay, if you consider the habitat of the plants, so we observe the plants in the botanical gardens, scrub jungles, evergreen forests, deciduous forests, and in the normal desert areas, aquatic habitats, and also on the normal mesophytic terrestrial habitat. So here we are talking about the plants which are present in different locations or different places or different areas. So does all the plants present in all these areas show same type of size, structure, shape, morphology, physiology, genetical aspects, etc. So we find a lot of variation between the plants which are present in different localities or within the same locality also. There are a number of differences between one species to the other species, and within the species also we may observe little changes. So it is very tough to identify and study the changes from one plant body to the other plant body, so that the scientists had made an systematic study in the form of plant taxonomy. So in that, as I said, that the term taxonomy was coined by A.P.D. Kandol, where the plants are studied or plants are grouped into various classes or various groups or various categories based on the similarities and dissimilarities. The group wise similarities and group wise dissimilarities can be studied easily when compared to identifying and studying the individual characters of the plants. So based on that one, many scientists from long back, from ancient period of time, the people had started identifying and classifying the plants based on their own criteria. So likewise, if we take, so Aristotle is the person who classified the living organisms based on presence and absence of red blood cells in them. Anemia and anemia are the two groups which have been categorized based on presence and absence of red blood cells in them. In the same way, Theophrastus, father of botany, he classified the plants based on their habit into herbs, shrubs and trees. Likewise, to the modern period, so there are hundreds of plant scientists who try to classify the plants into various categories or various groups based on the similarities and dissimilarities. So broadly if we talk about here, so there are two categories. One is alpha taxonomy and omega taxonomy. So alpha taxonomy means the classification of the plants based on morphological characters. The criteria taken for classification is morphological characters. So based on morphology, that is the plants which are showing similarity in their morphological characters have been kept under one family or one group, and the one which are differing in their morphological characters have been kept in different groups. In the same way, omega taxonomy. So this is considered to be some more advanced when compared to the alpha, or we can say better classification or better taxonomic study when compared to alpha taxonomy. Why? Because here they had considered more number of characters for classification of the plants. Like they had taken the knowledge from various branches of botany like phytochemistry, cytology, genetics, embryology, palynology. Likewise, if you consider knowledge from various branches of botany have been taken, not only these branches of botany, there are many such branches of botany from which they had derived the knowledge for classifying the plants. Apart from this one, they also consider the morphological characters that have been the main criteria in the alpha taxonomy. Morphological characters are also been considered. But apart from all these things, which one is given more priority or more importance? Here it is the phylogeny of the plants. Phylogeny means the ancestral characters are considered, or that evolutionary changes which are taking place in the plants are given more and more importance, or the primary importance while classifying the plants. So this type of classification where all these aspects have been considered for classification, that is the reason why omega taxonomy will give the better classification when compared to the alpha taxonomy. So basically there are 4 concepts on which the taxonomy is based on. Those are characterization, second one is identification, third one is nomenclature, and the fourth one is classification. First one, characterization. So in order to identify a plant, we should have at least little knowledge about the terms related to the characters of the plants. So that is what we call it as a characterization. For example, if you observe a flower, so we say the flower, that means if you know that it contains so and so parts like sepals, petals, and what is the arrangement of petals, how many petals are there, what is the color of the petal, what is the size of the petal, and corolla also. So how many sepals are there, how they are arranged, in how many orals the sepals are arranged. Likewise, stamens, how many stamens are there, so what is the organization of the stamens, what is the number of stamens, so is there any variation in the size of the stamens of the flower, and gynoecium, how many carpels, whether the carpels are fused or free. So if they are fused, so how to identify the number of carpels, how many locules are there, what is the arrangement of the ovules inside the ovary. So likewise there are many characters related to each and every aspect of each and every characterization of the plants. So that is what we call it a characterization. When we know the characters of any living organism or a plant which we had observed, then only we can identify the plants. So that is what we call it as a second concept, that is identification. For example, if a person had observed a plant for the first time in his life, so he may think that based on some characters what he knows, so what he do, he says that he is a new plant for him, but maybe some other persons had already identified the plant and given some name and kept in some particular group of family or class. So here how to know that whether it have been already been identified by some other persons? So it can be done by going to the botanical gardens, or we can say that some organizations or some institutions are there where the herbaria are present. So here we should know something little about herbarium or herbaria. Herbaria means a small twig of a plant along with some leaves, few number of leaves and flowers are collected, and it have to be pressed. After pressing, all the liquids which are present in the plant twig will be lost from that one, and the twig become dry. So that dried twig have to be placed on a sheet like structure called as herbarium sheet, and all the characters related to the plant like morphological characters, that is vegetative characters, floral characters, to be written on the sheet. So that type of collection of the dried specimens of a plants is called as herbarium. So here herbarium of hundreds of years back plants are also been there in various botanical gardens or the national institutions and the international institutions. Here RBG, Royal Botanical Garden, it is present in Kew, England. So this Royal Botanical Garden contains the largest herbarium of internationally famous. So that's why it is considered to be the International Center for Plant Identification. Then in the same way, in India also there are some botanical gardens where the plants belonging to India or which are native or habitat of India are kept in the form of herbarium. So like a National Botanical Garden and the Indian Botanical Garden which are present, there also we can see the plants. So if a person had identified a plant for the first time in his life, so how to know that whether someone had already identified the plant or not? So you have to go to that place and you have to compare the characters of the plant he had identified to the plants which are already been existing in the herbarium. So if any characters are maximum resembling to that plant which is present in herbarium, so that means the plant have been already identified by some other person. So if there is no such plant which is equally same as like that the person had identified, then we can say that is a new plant. So that is the direct method of identification of the plant, and the herbarium is called as quick referral system because for reference. So for knowing about the older plants, so this is very much useful and it's a very fastest thing, and we are directly comparing the characters. So herbarium is useful for direct identification of the plants. And in the same way there are some flora of books are present. Okay, flora means the plants, the books related to plants are present. In this flora of books, each and every plant that have been identified by the persons, by the earlier scientists are given or kept in the form of characters, and each and every character is represented in the form of key. For every key, so two characters will be there, so we call them as couplet. One of the character is contrasting character and other character is the character which is shown by that particular plant. For example, when it is written as root system, so first character may be taproot system, second character may be fibrous root system. So whatever the plant that the person have been identified, that plant either it may contain taproot system or fibrous root system. If the plant contains taproot system, so that the first character is say exhibited by the plant, and second character is contrasting, that is opposite character where it is not shown by the plant. Likewise every character will contains the couplet. So two characters are present, and in each couplet, so as I said that in each key two characters are there. Each character is called as lead. The first character is called as lead and second character is also called as lead, and the two leads are combinedly called as couplet. So here if you had identified a plant, so we can compare the characters with the keys present in the flora of books also. But here the plants are not available directly in the flora of books, but the pictures of the plants are present. So we call this as an indirect method of plant identification. So here nowadays as the computerization is present, all the characters which are there in the flora of books have been computerized. Now we call such cards, such keys as computer punch card kits. So likewise these are the various methods of identification of the plants. So once a plant have been identified, we know that each and every plant have the common English names and also vernacular names, that is the local names present in the local language. So it may not be suitable for all the areas. So there is a possibility of lot of confusion when a plant is given with a common English name or vernacular name. So the name of a plant should be in such a manner that it should be internationally accepted. So wherever you go in the world, so if you say that particular name of a plant, they have to be in a position to identify that particular plant. So that is what we call it as a naming of the plants in a systematic manner or with some rules and regulations, that is called as nomenclature. Initially when nomenclature was come into existence, so there are many scientists, they had started giving names in by following different rules and regulations. So in that polynomial system was there, but later it have been replaced by binomial system of classification. Binomial system of nomenclature. So this binomial system is every plant should be given 2 words for naming, and in that first word is called as genus and the second word is called as species. Genus or generic name, species or specific epithet we call it as. So here genus should be in the noun form. Noun means it is a name given to that particular plant based on the name of the person. It may be based on the name of the person or the place where it has been identified or some other nature. But the species should be in the adjective form. So adjective form means it will describe the character of that particular plant species, that is called as adjective form. And the name of the genus should start with capital letter, whereas the name of the species should start with small letter. So likewise binomial nomenclature system is followed. This system was first started by a scientist called as Gaspard Bahin. But the entire credit of regarding binomial nomenclature system goes to Linnaeus scientist. Why? Because he is the person who popularized the system of binomial nomenclature by publishing in his book called as Species Plantarum. So that is the reason why the credit for binomial nomenclature goes to Linnaeus scientist. The binomial nomenclature was introduced by Gaspard Bahin scientist. So likewise this is binomial system was followed for naming the plants, and there are some rules and principles we can consider which have been proposed for naming the plants. So those rules are called as ICBN rules, or International Code for Botanical Nomenclature. So here internationally known famous botanical scientists used to assemble for every 5 to 10 years, and that is called as International Botanical Congress. So in this international botanical congresses, so they used to propose some rules. Sometimes the new rules will come into existence, or the older rules are replaced by the new ones based on the changes which are required according to the things or new aspects. So here the ICBN rules are present. So in that each and every plant should be named by following the binomial nomenclature, or binomial nomenclature system should be followed for naming of each and every plant. And so that is first one is binomial nomenclature should be followed for naming the plants. And as I said that every plant should be given 2 words. So in this one the naming should be in Latin language. The name of the plants should be in the Latin language, and they should be written in italics, or whenever they are published they should be published in italics. But when we are not able to publish, so when you are writing, so that should be underlined, or the scientific name should be underlined. And the author name, so who is the author regarding a plant means the person who first identified and described that particular plant species, he is considered as the author. The name of the author have to be abbreviated at the end of the species name or at the end of the scientific name. For example, so let us take Pisum sativum. So here Pisum is a genus name and it is starting with capital letter, and sativum is the species name where it is starting with small letter small s, and we are written L, capital L or Linn. So that shows that L means Linnaeus. So he is the first person to identify this Pisum sativum plant and describe this plant. So that is why the name of that author have been abbreviated at the end of the scientific name. And according to these rules, I said that the name of the scientific name of the plants had to be underlined separately like this. So this is the ICBN rule which we are following while we are writing the scientific name of any plant. Then so what is tautonymy? Actually here if you see this name, the genus name is different and the species name is different. But tautonymy means there are some plants in which the genus name and species name are represented with same word. Let's take a example of apple plant. Initially it was called as Malus malus. In this, the first word represents the genus, second word represents the species. But according to the ICBN rules, we call this as tautonymy. Tautonymy is naming is not an legitimate means of naming. So that is the reason why the name of this plant have been changed to Pyrus malus. Apple is now called as Pyrus malus. So likewise, these are some of the ICBN rules which have to be followed by any person while we are naming the plants according to based on binomial nomenclature. The next aspect is classification. So after naming the plants have to be categorized into various groups based on similarities and dissimilarities. So here, as I said that from ancient period of time, many scientists had tried to classify the plants. In that basically the classification was based on economical uses, up to which extent the plants are useful for humankind. Like based on economical uses, let's take here, the plants have been classified into cereals. We know that cereals means which are providing major food for the humankind. Then medicinal plants, so which are yielding the drugs for curing various diseases. Likewise, based on the economical use, so like these plants have been categorized, except of course these are two examples which I have taken, but there are many such categories of plants which have been classified based on the economical uses. And some plants have been classified based on the habit also, as we said, like herbs, shrubs and trees. If we take this example only, it is not like that all herbs will have the same type of characters and all shrubs should contain same type of characters and all trees should contain same type of characters. It is not sure, because within the, if you take 10 types, 10 herbs belonging to different species, we find a lot of diversity in the structure of the leaf, stem, nature of the venation, type of flowers, like lot of variation can be found. So that means based on habit, classification based on habit is also not an accurate. Likewise, many scientists had given many types of classification, so they may not be accurate or they may not be perfect according to a botanical scientist. So based on that one, what the scientists have done is, whatever the number of classification that have been there, they have been categorized into 3 groups. So that is what we call it as a types of classifications. Here Linnaeus is one of the most important scientists we have to talk something about here. Linnaeus is called as father of taxonomy. Why he is so called as father of taxonomy means he is a person who had given or some principles or some done a lot of work related to development of taxonomy. Like he had given some principles of classification. Of course, those principles have been later modified by various other scientists, but initiation, the pioneer work related to the principles of classification was given by this Linnaeus scientist. And he is a person who had given artificial system of classification, that is a classification based on sexual characters of the plants. Sexual characters means based on the characters of stamens and gynoecium, that is carpels. Then he is a person who said that classification based on floral characters is more accurate when compared to the classification based on vegetative characters. According to him, floral characters are more stable. That means they will not change according to the change in environmental conditions. So they are retained for long number of years when compared to the vegetative characters. So that the type of some principles have been given or some pioneer work was done by the scientist. So he is considered as a father of taxonomy.